Alright, so welcome back to Dale of Merchants. So for this video, we're going to be talking about the owls, the snowy owls, okay, and their stuff. Now, one of the things I noticed straight away is all of the cards in this one are passive. There are no techniques at all in this with these guys, okay, which is really interesting because the sloths here, all of their cards are techniques. With the foxes, all of their cards are techniques. And with the crocodiles, all of their cards are techniques too. Oh, and we haven't gotten to the beavers yet, but all of their cards are also techniques as well. So the only ones that have passive ones and are a mixture of passive and techniques are these platypuses. They have a mixture of both techniques and passives. And then, of course, the polecats here have a mixture of techniques and passive abilities too. But the snowy owls, all of their cards are passive abilities. Okay? There won't be any techniques involved here. Okay, so let's talk about them. So the first one here is the wise spy. Okay, for the observant snowy owls. You may draw 3 cards from your deck and place them back in any order once in your turn. So this is an interesting passive ability. If you're not going to use this passive ability, then keep it a secret from the other players that this is in your hand, until you obviously use it to buy something, obviously, or something like that, or for a stall or something. But if you're going to use its passive ability, you'll say you're going to use the wise spy, and then you're going to say what you're going to do with this passive ability, which is draw 3 cards from your deck, and then you get to place them back in any order, basically. You can only do this once per turn, though, just so you know. Well, let's do these in order. So this is next. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Better. So here we have Ancient Knowledge. After another player has fully resolved a technique card, you may search your deck, you may discard 1 card from there, and shuffle your deck. So if you're going to use the passive ability of the Ancient Knowledge, right after another player has fully resolved a technique card, meaning that might be when the player plays a technique card, it's fully resolved after they play it. Or it could be later in the game that it's fully resolved, like the start of their next turn, or the end of their next turn, or maybe even later than that. If that's the case, regardless of the case, when another player has fully resolved that technique card, you may search your deck, and you say you're going to use the passive ability of the Ancient Knowledge to search your deck, discard a card from there, and then you shuffle your deck. So it's a good way of getting some of those junk cards out of your deck so you can get the better cards. Okay, so that can be useful at times. It may not be super useful at the beginning of the game, but towards the end, it will definitely be helpful. Okay, here we have Quality Inspection. This one is probably one of the best there is for this particular group of cards. After this card is placed into your hand, you may throw away a card from your hand. If you do so, draw a card from your deck and place it into your hand. So what does that mean when it's placed into your hand? When you purchase a card from the market, it gets placed into your hand. When it's placed into your hand, you may throw away a card from your hand. Ooh, now I can throw away a junk card if I want to. And then I get to draw a card in its place from the deck and place it into my hand. That's awesome. Another way this could be effective is when you are drawing cards from your deck and putting them into your hand. Okay, well, this passive ability would get activated once again if you want to. Then you may throw away a card from your hand. But remember, if you're going to activate this passive ability, you better make sure that you tell them, I get to now activate my quality inspection. And then do what it says and tell them what's going to happen. But still, that's really cool. You know, there are also possible other ways that this could happen too. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're playing with either the fennec foxes or the crocodiles, the dwarf crocodiles, and one of them allows you to take a card from another player's hand or deck and place it into your hand. If this was the case, this card was placed into your hand, you could say, I'm going to use the passive ability after you obtain it. That's another awesome way of you could. So there are definitely some interesting strategies with this particular card. For sure, this could be a very useful card at times. For sure. So that's definitely one of the best there is. At least for the owls, anyway. So here we have the Binoculars. So after another player purchases a card, you may draw a card from your deck and place it into your hand. Then discard a card from your hand. So this is a passive ability that you can activate after a player purchases a card. If a player purchases a card and you want to use this ability, you will say, I'm going to go ahead and activate my passive ability, Binoculars. And then you're going to tell them what you get to do, which says, I can now draw a card from my deck, I get to place it into my hand, and then I can discard a card from my hand afterwards. So I get a really good card, and then, let's discard a junk card, for instance. So the Binoculars is definitely a cool one, for sure. Okay, so here we have extra remarks. After another player builds a stack, you may search your discard pile for a card and place it on top of your deck. Once again, this is a passive ability you can activate. You'll have to make sure you say that you're going to activate this passive ability. Otherwise, keep it a secret from other players that it's in your hand. After another player builds a stack, you can then claim that you have extra remarks and you're going to activate its passive ability. Then you can search your discard pile for a card and you get to place it and put it on top of your deck. So this could be useful in getting cards you want to play sooner rather than later, or utilizing sooner rather than later. So that's a pretty cool passive ability. All right. Then we have balancing. After another player shuffles their deck, you may swap an Animal Folk card from your hand with any card in your discard pile. Well, that's kind of interesting. So it will be a passive ability you can activate, and you'll have to say it, obviously. When another player shuffles their deck, you can then swap an Animal Folk card from your hand with any card in your discard pile. So maybe there's a better Animal Folk card in your discard pile than the one that's currently in your hand. Maybe it's a 2 that you don't like that much. You can swap it out for one that's in your discard pile that's possibly better. So basically that can be useful at times too. So it just depends, obviously. So obviously balancing it out. Is it worth it or not? So that's all of the cards in the Snowy Owls, for the Snowy Owl here, for the Observant Snowy Owls. Okay, so we still have one more Critter Merchant left, or one more Animal Folk Merchant left. And then we'll have covered all of the cards for Dell of Merchants 2.